My name is Robin Atkins. I'm a member of the San Juan County Textile Guild, and I'm here today to interview Mary Miller, who has been a member for 22 years and who is quite accomplished in a number of the different textile arts, as you will see. Mary, I'd like to talk to you about your response and your what's been going on for you during the past 6 months during the corona pandemic. I'd like to hear about any shifts you've experienced during this time, and I'd like you to tell us, if you will, about your son and about your family business, and if you have a minute, how you have used this time to help others.
Okay, Robin, I'll give this a try. I would say that there are two things involved in my thinking about the pandemic and my life living next to it, within it. One is what gets me out of bed in the morning, and then on the other side of the coin, what keeps me awake at night. One thing that keeps me awake at night is, well, it was my son's diagnosis of having the coronavirus. He's an ER doctor in Denver, and found out that he was testing positive. His level of symptoms, however, just allowed him to doctor himself at home, as well as his family in Denver. And then when he had passed through the various symptoms and their stages, he was tested and allowed to come back to work at a certain prescribed period of time after the testing. The other thing that kept me awake at night was, among many, was, of course, the decision made within our family business, which is a Colorado High Adventure Children's Camp, that we could not open for campers and staff to come this season. And of course, they work all year long for about 10 weeks of people being at the camp for camp sessions. And so that wipes out a whole year's income. We looked at it from many different angles, trying to figure out how we could do something there. But we weren't able to come up with anything that would be allowed in today's climate. So we had to check that off the list. Let's see. Another thing, though, that got me out of bed was the fact that I could refocus my energies away from all of the worries and keep my hands busy. And so that's what I did. I hit the stash containers and figured out a way that I could keep my hands busy. And some of the results of those projects could be gifts or could be in some way of help to others, like donating them to the Family Resource Center. That probably takes us to seeing
some pictures. All right, let's do it. And we'll share the screen and you can tell us about your work.
This first item is a scarf that I have made from scratch, you'd probably say. I have spun the wool. It is merino and silk that I obtained from Fidalgo Yarns. And started out knitting one pattern, then it evolved into another pattern, and then finally ended up with this rather airy end of the scarf with a handmade button on the tip to keep it from flying off of your shoulder so often. That pretty much describes that. I don't have a direction for this scarf. It's just now waiting for someone to want it.
You
Okay, there we have another knitted item. That is unfinished, but it should become a lovely cable knit wool cardigan sweater for myself. More like a jacket. It looks more like an Afghan right there, but it is really going to be styled into a sweater. This is a fun one that for which the idea came to me somewhere, maybe in the night, of a busy board. I have a nephew who's 2 years old, and wanted to send him a toy at the same time that he's going to become a brother to a little sister in August, and don't want him to be forgotten. He also has some occupational therapy needs, so this would answer to his needs. We have on this board, I had to cut the board and paint the board after sanding it, and then attach these various items. And I ran around the aisles with my mask on in the Ace Hardware and found a few things that I could put on the board, and then I made some from home. There are some snaps that have to be snapped together, some buttons that have to go in buttonholes, a zipper, a piece of Velcro, and wheels that spin around in a circle, as well as the wheel going around, a toggle switch, and a shoelace. His name is Elliot, so there's a mirror there. He can see himself. There's some counting rings on a rod, and a latch hook below that. So that's a busy board, and it's been mailed to him, and he's received that. I also made a bunch of pom-poms and put them in a red bucket and sent them to him just to play toss pom-poms in the pail. These are hand stitched, sort of like embroidery, using embroidery floss on cardstock weight paper. Some designs I made myself, and some I have borrowed. But just simply poke a hole in the paper and start threading your needle through all those holes to come up with these designs. Hitting the stash again, I had a bunch of squares, or a bunch of 2-inch strips that I had to cut into squares. I just thought if I started making some squares that kind of looked like flowers, I could build a quilt. So these are very improvisational, but they're using up fabrics. No store is open, so I can buy fabrics at that time. And so these are just 8 of the 25 that I made for the quilt. I found that I needed to enhance some of them, most of them, with some embroidery stitching on top of the patchwork quilted pieces. Well, I had some more fabric in the stash that was very colorful, and I just thought of making a crib quilt out of this. Sometimes my sister and I have gone to the quilt shop in Anacortes, and she sees some fun fabrics, and she said, how about this? How about this? How about this? And by the time we're finished, you know, I've spent $100, and we're going out the door with all kinds of things that I'm going to sew, not she. Anyway, this is some of that collection, and it's simply colorful pieces on a white background. The back is also very colorful. Be great for a young child, maybe to be donated to either our local Head Start our local family resource center, or the daycare preschool at Pike Place Market. Janet Wright has started that project and collects quilts for them.
Did you hand quilt it, Mary?
Yes, it's hand quilted. It's machine pieced and hand quilted.
Nice.
Okay, this quilt is also for a young child or baby. And I just made up these flag patterns that are in the squares. I don't know if there are any flags like this out there on people's sailing vessels, but they kind of look like what you might see on them. And then the background fabric is, of course, covered with anchors. And this is a watercolor quilted wall hanging. It is not complete yet, but I was finally able to go to the mainland because of a doctor visit for my sister, and we went over to Quilting Foxes in Tedrowoolley and found the black surrounding fabric. So it'll all be finished soon. Val Keaton often posts lovely pictures of her gardens. I can't compete with that, but I put my garden together with fabric. So that's what you see here.
And that's called a watercolor
Quilt.
So it's little tiny squares, is that right?
Those are, yeah, they're less than 2 inch, I think. Yes, many squares that you need to lay out on a board, wall board, and see if it all just kind of mushes together. You don't want anything to stand out particularly. You want it to just flow like a watercolor does. So you work very hard to achieve that. And sometimes you have to flip the fabric piece over, and it's a little bit lighter shade, let's say on the back, but it's still there, and it works because it helps the flow of the colors. Okay, there it is now. This was a basket that I made. It started out as a stitchery piece in the center of the basket, improvisational embroidery using pearl cotton and a large eye needle, sharp needle, inspired by a class that we gathered together for with Lauren Storm over on Shaw Island. And there was no rhyme or reason to this design. It just was pick up the needle and the thread and go for it, and it just became a happening. And I really wasn't terribly excited about the end result, but I said I need to do something with it. I spent a lot of time on it. So I covered a cardboard disc, and then I attached the fabric wrapped around clothesline and did a coiled basket, built it up from the stitched disc. And it's been given as a gift now for some friends in Arizona who are building a new home.
So what I see is that you've used a lot of your stash and been very productive during these 5 months since it all started.
Well, it's what got me out of bed. It's what got me out of bed and distracted me from world news and national news.
Yeah. Well,
which is far from positive.
Well, I'd say you've done a good job of distracting yourself and made some really beautiful things. And it's really nice that a lot of them are gifts. That's nice.
Yeah, yes, they won't stay here long.
All right. Well, do you have any looking forward to to probably a lot of more months of virus stuff. Do you have any thoughts about your next few months ahead and what you might be doing?
Actually, I'm scratching my head about that because I'm reaching a little period here where I'm feeling bored and that I have cabin fever.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to figure that out. What will keep me going?
How about the meetings that we've been having, the Zoom meetings? You've only come to one of them. Did that have any, does this idea that we're woven together have any significance for you yet?
Well, it's always reassuring that you all are out there and that you're keeping busy, and what the projects that you all have chosen probably help form some ideas in my own head of directions that I can take. So I need to zoom in on those again and stay with it so that I can get some inspiration, because I'm in a period where I do need some now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've certainly enjoyed talking with you today, Mary, and seeing your work, and I think it's lovely. I really do. And so keep up that and keep coming to the Zoom meetings so that we can see what you're doing and be inspired by you too.
Thank you so much, Robin. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mary.
Bye.
Bye.